I don't like the word apathy because I think it doesn't really describe what happens. We have people who have given up on the system. That is, they grow up in a family, and maybe in their family people went out and voted, and so they go out and vote, and they vote a couple times for a Democrat, and the Democrat lies to them, and they vote for a Republican, and the Republican lies to them. They go back to vote the third time, and they go, hell, I'm not voting anymore. So, you know, they just had it. And I think that happens to lots of people. They just go, it doesn't matter. No matter who you elect, they're going to do what they want to anyway. And so they give up on the political system. The Pew Foundation recently did a poll and did a study of people who don't vote. The interesting thing about that 40 to 50% of the American people, isn't that amazing? 40 to 50% of the American people don't vote. Those people who don't vote tend to agree more with the politics of the left wing of the spectrum. The non-voters tend to be more opposed to war. They tend to be more imposed, for example, they tend to be more in favor of things like extending unemployment benefits. They tend to be more in favor of union rights. They tend to be people who are more in favor of a political agenda more to the left. I'm not saying socialist necessarily. But we've created a political system that is meant to drive those people out of the system. They don't want them to vote. Those are the voters who would be most against the system as it is. And then I think, so I think that's really what happens. That people, it's not that people are, because apathy, often people say, oh, it comes up in school, you know, so-and-so doesn't have much school spirit, they're apathetic or something like that. Well, so we tend to mean, oh, they just don't really care. But it's not that people don't care. It's worse than that. It's not that they don't care. It's that they've given up. They've become demoralized. They've become disgusted. They've become disenchanted. I'm saying that I think that apathy is not a good word because I don't think it adequately conveys what happens. That I don't think people are simply like lazy or I don't care or something. It's like they have been beaten down by a system. They've been driven out of the system. And many of those, the people who don't vote, they are often the unemployed. They are the poorest people. They're people who suffered racial discrimination. They're people who have had to, because they're lower income people, they may have had to move more. And so they oh man, I have to go register to vote again. I have to change my address. We could have a system that had go in and register to vote on the day you vote, and we have lots of ways now to control people's identity and know who they are. They're going to measure people's eyeballs to keep track of everything, or they take your fingerprints for everything. There's many ways we could know who's voting, but they don't want all these people to get registered and to vote. And so I don't think it's just that they're apathetic. I think they've been beaten down, they've been excluded, and they have been discouraged, and they have been defeated, and they've been defeated economically and politically. And so I don't think it's simply apathy that takes place. And I think that we can see that people will come and rally to a cause at times where we get millions of people wanting to come out and vote. People were very enthused by President Obama, and we had millions of new voters. Unfortunately, they were absolutely betrayed by President Obama, who did not carry through on, he hasn't carried through on anything. They thought he was going to end the wars. He never exactly said he was, but they thought he was going to end the wars, but he didn't. They thought he was going to come out and save their jobs and save their homes, but he didn't. He saved the corporations. They thought he was going to end Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but he doesn't have any guts to even touch that, which was one of his big campaign promises. But you could see that when people thought that there was an idealistic candidate that represented change in the country, many people voted for him because he was African American and they wanted to say, we finally defeated racism in this country. That was great. But he did not fulfill his promise. It was great to see a black man be elected president of the United States, but he then betrayed the trust that people had given him. And so I think that it's not apathy. I think it's the sense of betrayal and failure. But if you provide people with something which makes sense, something which is inspiring, something which speaks to their needs, and if you engage them in a fight for that, I think we can change the country. I think millions of people would rally, and so we have to build up. In my view, as a socialist, I want to build up the organization to do that, because there's an old friend, Teamster organizer, once said, there is no hope, there's only organization. So you cannot do anything in the world unless you build an organization of people committed to making change. So that's the most important thing. You have to become a member of an organization, you have to commit yourself to it, you have to work with it, and by doing that you make change. And you have to not be discouraged because it's not going to work at first. So you have to continue.